In our last episode, we talked about how Tom Petty left Gainesville, Florida, and moved to Los Angeles to follow his dream and formed the Heartbreakers. Now we're going to move forward and see what the early days of the Heartbreakers were really all about. And it's going to be some fun, and there's going to be some turmoil, but there's definitely going to be a lot of great music. So if you're ready, okay then, let's drop the needle. In November of 1976, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers released their first album. And as you can see from the cover, Tom looks like a badass punker. I mean, he's got a leather jacket on and even a sash with bullets across his chest. And interestingly, the Heartbreakers don't even appear on the front cover. They're relegated to the back cover. Now, even though in the last episode we heard that when Tom formed the Heartbreakers, it's because he really wanted to be in a band. But make no mistake about it, this band was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. He's often said it wasn't a democracy, it was his band. The album was recorded in Shelter Studios in Hollywood with Denny Cordell as the producer. The album got zero attention in the US, but it was a totally different story in the UK. Tom and the band decided to tour the UK, and a single, Anything That's Rock and Roll, became a big hit over there. I like this album, including the great song Breakdown, which was released in a single in the US and became a top 40 hit. Fooled Again, I Don't Like It, The Moody Luna, and of course, the rockin' American Girl. After a year, the album finally charted in the US at 55, and it reached 24 in the UK. Now, as I said, since Tom and the Heartbreakers are becoming such a big hit in the UK, and they went and toured over there, then that tour became more extensive, and they were on the road. And the record label decides, gosh, guys, we need another record. But Tom doesn't have time to stop, and he doesn't have enough material to record a record. So the record company releases what's called a promo record. And a promo record is a record that's only sent to radio stations, disc jockeys, music critics, rock journalists, to create some buzz and some excitement around the group. And the album is called Official Live Leg. It's intended to look like a bootleg. And on it, there's only 4 songs. However, the UK version has an additional song, The Wild One Forever, inserted before Luna. This is one of the band's first gigs. It was recorded in Boston in 1976 in December, where they played as the opening act to Al Kooper. Now, when the album came out, this is actually the label, official label, that's on the album. But when I looked at the album that I had, I have what turns out to be a counterfeit label. So I guess this is a bootleg of what was supposed to be a bootleg. And you know, I never ever knew that until I did the research for this episode and dug into what that album really was all about. For Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' second album, they went back into the Shelter Studios in LA, and in 1978, they released You're Gonna Get It. Again, the band looks hard-ass on the cover, but at least they're all on the front cover this time. Besides Denny Cordell as a producer, Noah Shark gets credit, and Tom Petty makes his debut as a producer as well. If you look closely at the inner sleeve where it lists the credits under Road Crew, there's a listing for Jim, Sleep Who Needs It, Lanahan as lighting director and noise control. Now you might remember that Jim Lanahan was the original lead vocalist in Mudcrutch. This is Tom's first gold record. I like the title track, You're Gonna Get It, Magnolia, perhaps a foreshadowing of where Tom would go later with Southern accents, and the great I Need to Know and Listen to Her Heart. I got both these first 2 albums when they first came out, and I was extremely impressed by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Because yeah, Their image on the cover made them look like they were probably another punk band, but man, they sure played like good old rock and rollers that they were in their heart. And their songs were great. So now Tom and the group decided to start work on their third album. But by this point, Tom and Denny Cordell are having a bit of a falling out, and Denny decides that he's really too busy to produce the album. So Tom decides to bring in Jimmy Iovine to work as a producer. Turns out to be a very smart move. But if we're learning anything about Tom Petty, it's that he's very disciplined, and if he gets riled up, boy, look out. And he got riled up pretty quickly when they were recording this album. Because you see, as it turns out, Shelter Records was distributed by ABC Records. And then ABC sells those distribution rights of Shelter Records to MCA Records. And that sale was orchestrated by Denny Cordell. But Denny didn't tell Tom anything about it. And when Tom found out, he was furious. And he confronted Cordell and said he felt very betrayed. And Denny Cordell couldn't understand, and he says, hey, it's not personal, it's just business. And we'll still be friends. Well, they never were, because Tom would never forgive him. But Tom wasn't going to let this go quietly, because he was really upset and said, we are not a commodity just to be sold without any input from the band. And he looked around and figured out the only way that he could get out of his contract was if he declared bankruptcy. So, of course, this sets up lots of meetings between Tom Petty, the Heartbreakers, and a bank of lawyers. And during one of those meetings, it was getting pretty contentious. And as the story goes, Tom pulls out a pocket knife and starts cleaning his fingernails with the pocket knife. Now the lawyers freaked out because they looked at him and saw this long-haired punk rocker with a knife, and so naturally they felt threatened about it. So the meeting just got worse. Lawyers yelling at Tom, and so finally Tom says, I'll tell you what, you guys are never going to win this because I'll just stop and go peanuts someplace. And you know what? You guys can't make hit records. So, everything now is going to court. As the court proceedings started, the court decided that the record label owned the rights to the recordings that Tom and the group were currently making. And so if the label wanted to confiscate them and hold them until the court hearings were over, they had every right to do that. Well, Tom and the band was not going to let that happen, because they didn't want their masters to go missing. And so what they did is they came up with an elaborate scheme, and they kept Tom Petty out of the loop of it. But basically, anytime they were finished recording a tape, they would change the labeling on the tape so it no longer said Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. They made up some fictitious name. And then it turns out that the tapes were spirited out of the studio. They actually did tests on this, and they could get them relabeled and out of the studio in under an hour. And then they were hid someplace at night, and Tom Petty had no idea where. The thought being that if the court ever hauled Tom Petty in and said, where are your tapes, he could honestly say to the court, I don't have any idea. So the case drags on, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers have to go to court and sit there and listen to all of this, what they consider nonsense. But then suddenly, at the 12th hour, the label buckles, and they decide that they will give in to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. The concession is that the band gets their own record label, and they get their publishing rights back, which Tom hadn't even realized that he sold away. So now he's got the ownership of his songs, he's got a label, and they get to negotiate their own deal. The only caveat was that MCA wanted to distribute any albums that they put out. Finally, the Tortured album came out in October of 1979, and the album, of course, is called Damn the Torpedoes. It rocks from the opening act, the great Refugee. Then this is followed with Here Comes My Girl, Even the Losers. Then there's a song called Century City that Tom wrote about the lawyers. And I also like Don't Do Me Like That and the closer, Louisiana Rain. The album was a big hit, reaching number 2 in the U.S. Two of the singles, Don't Do Me Like That and Refugee, hit the top 15 in the charts as singles in the U.S. So now Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers are on top of the world. But things are about to get really nasty with the record label again. Now, as usual, I've created a Spotify playlist where you can listen to some of the songs that I've talked about in this episode. And here's the link, and I'll also put it in the comments below. In our next episode, we'll look at Tom's music in the next decade, which includes, of course, hassles with the record label, more great music, touring with Bob Dylan, and all in all, it is a pretty monumental era for the music of Tom Petty, and Tom Petty is an artist himself. So hope you've enjoyed this. There's a whole lot more to come. Thanks for watching, and keep it rockin'. If you liked this episode, hit the like button, and you can also leave me a comment down below, and I'll respond to you. If you subscribe, we'll let you know when future episodes come out.